Hi, my name's Kevin Martin. I'm coming to you from the Lake Erie Regional Grape Program. And I wanted to take a minute to wrap up our harvest season. We're not quite there yet, but the juice grapes are in. Almost all the wine grapes are in. There's a few late season reds around. And it was an interesting year, so I thought we'd take a few minutes to talk about it. I know a lot of you have been in the weeds for the last 5 or 6 weeks, and the view from above isn't something you've had a chance to take a look at. So I thought I'd do a wrap, and you could see where the industry stands, maybe not just what's going on in your operation. Overall, the market has been responding really well to an above-average crop. A little bit surprising. I think a couple of years ago we found a bottom to a really declining market, a lot of cancellations of contracts, lower prices, and we're starting to see that bottom, particularly in the cash market, as well as some of the other markets that respond more quickly to rising prices. So there is some promise there. I think it's going to take another year or two to really figure out where that trend is going. But in the meantime, we did have that above average crop that most of it got marketed, and we saw some vineyards that looked as though they were abandoned were actually harvested. So that poses some promise for the future. One of the challenges this year, I think, was some unexpected weather. I think we usually tend to expect when we have an early season, because veraison occurs earlier in the summer, it's a lot easier to predict weather and manage ripening, and we expect a great deal of Brix accumulation that this year just didn't happen. There were complaints about basically everything: slower accumulation, shelling, cracking of berries, dehydration. Overall, when we look at the industry as a whole, it looks like the crop size came down by about 7 or 8% because of that fruit loss. And we also saw an average Brix forecast decline from 16.8 to 16.2% sugar. So that's going to result, obviously, in a decline in total volume. And it will also result in a decline in quality that some growers may realize more than others. So average Brix has fallen, so everybody's going to be in the same sort of situation with similar payments, since National Grape pays based on average Brix, and a lot of processors don't pay on Brix anymore. For those that do, there will be slightly lower payments than were probably expected at the beginning of harvest. 16.2 is still above 16.0, so that's a minimum threshold for people who are trying to get a premium payment. And overall, there really wasn't a lot of rejected loads or loads that didn't make it because of low Brix, so we didn't necessarily reach that territory. It was just a year that I think everybody thought was going to be relatively easy. By the time August rolled around, that became somewhat of a management challenge. Kind of a good reminder to go out and make sure you do a lot of Brix sampling. It was fairly predictable how Brix would accumulate if you knew where you were at. So if you had a block that was 14.5 and you had a block that was 15.0, in the early part of the season, they were moving. Both of those blocks were probably moving slower than expected. So it did add quite a bit of value to the smoothness of harvest if you had a good idea of what all your blocks were pre-harvest. It was just, we saw Brix go up maybe 0.5 point a week instead of a whole point, or less than that. There was actually a week, the third week of harvest, average Brix for the entire region went down. I think it had a lot to do with berry size kind of fluctuating and a lot of rain that we had that was unseasonably high in its amount. So those management challenges probably lowered overall profitability just slightly and created some headaches for growers. But overall, probably one of our best years in the last 5 in terms of the promising trends the market's showing, and as well as the slightly above average yields. And that's about it for now. Thanks a lot for joining us. If you have any questions, please comment below.